4 days of Cleveland Browns training camp is in the books. The team is going to get a day off tomorrow on Wednesday, and then the pads come on after that. So we got some takeaways to go through. We got some quotes to look at from Jimmy Haslam speaking to the media, some injury news to report on, all that and more coming up on the show. But right off the bat, I do want to give, I wouldn't say a shout out, but I want to give Ronnie James some time right now and say get well soon to go through a cardiac arrest episode at that age for someone of his physical status who is in tip-top shape. It's very scary stuff, but from everyone in Ohio and Cleveland and Northeast Ohio and Akron, get well soon, Bronny. I know that we are all pulling for you, and we are thinking of the James family during this time. Now, Jimmy Haslam did speak to the media in West Virginia, and he was asked about, hey, what's the latest on the new stadium, by the way? What's going on over there? Here's what he said. These are big, complex projects. There's going to be a public-private partnership, okay? And getting that right is not easy. The only thing D and I would say for sure is we're not leaving Northeastern Ohio, okay? That's for sure. Our preference is to be on the lakefront, but you have to see how things play out. It will be fluid, and there will be bumps on the road, and it may be different in 3 months than it is now. Northeastern Ohio, but not specifically Cleveland. When I first saw that quote, I thought, am I the only one that finds it a bit peculiar that he didn't specify Cleveland, but just left it a little bit vague as for Northeastern Ohio? And then like 2 hours later, it was the only thing I could see on Twitter. So I want to talk about this possibility of not a move, but more like a relocation, like a Ross Geller pivot, right? You're going from Cleveland lakefront to Medina or somewhere else in Northeastern Ohio. I don't want to get too deep into where the Browns could move in the area, but the suburbs are a possibility. Now, some Browns Stadium history, in case you're not familiar with how far back this goes. Cleveland Browns Stadium, as it is called now, opened in 1999, and they pretty much botched the construction because they had to rush it to get it open for that first game in 99, and that led to some structural issues. I remember seeing some quotes and some reports of people on the construction crew saying they didn't just cut some corners, they cut all the corners. And that's led to what's kind of an average to, let's be honest, below average stadium league-wide. Now, the lease for the team runs through 2028, so the Browns are kind of stuck to the stadium through then, but we're talking about billionaires. We know these things can always be, ripped up and cut up. And finally, I'll add that once the Browns bought, or once the Haslams bought the Browns after 2012, Jimmy and D. Haslam have installed a new Jumbotron, escalators. They even took out 3,000 seats to make it more spacious and a little bit better. So they have put some money into it. They have definitely tried to dress it up. But at a certain point, it is what it is, and that is it's not an elite stadium. It doesn't have great amenities surrounding it. It's not like it's on the lake and it's got all these bars and restaurants and hotels and things to do. It's not very accessible from downtown, and this is something D. Haslam has really talked about, a land bridge from downtown to the stadium. So it's not so much of a nightmare trying to get there. Honestly, it's not in a fantastic spot, and there are definitely some improvements that could be made. Ideally, at least for my opinion, I'd like to see this team or see the stadium stay where it is on the lakefront, and I'd like to see the whole area be improved, right? Be a spot where when tourists come to town, when people from out of town visit Cleveland, they go visit the lakefront area, and there's things to do down there. There's bars and restaurants around the stadium, so people going before the game, after the game. It's not just a mad dash to get as far away from the stadium as possible, but the trend is for multi-purpose complexes. It's called Jerry World for a reason, not Jerry Land or Jerry Country, because it's bigger than that, right? There is so much surrounding the Cowboys Stadium. There's a lot down there. That's why they moved to Arlington from Irving and then from Dallas before that, but that's a whole Cowboys history we don't need right now. But you're seeing a lot of ownership want to build these huge functions around the stadium where the ownership gets to own all the bars and restaurants, so they're getting their hands in that jackpot. And that's something that's going on with the Chicago Bears, for example, where the Bears want to move out of their stadium, which, just like the Browns, is right on the lake, essentially, right there. To be different lake, but one of the Great Lakes. And they want to move to the suburbs and get a lot of big plot of land and open up convention centers and hotels and restaurants and own all that land so they get all that money. That is what the Haslams want, right? That is the new blueprint. That is the mecca of owning an NFL stadium. Screw leasing a stadium through the city and only getting some tickets or some concessions and parking and things like that. Outright own your stadium and own everything around it, that big plot of land, so that you can build up and put what you want. That would be why the Browns would potentially move out of downtown Cleveland if the city and the county and the state don't start chipping in, or at least through the Haslam's eyes, and start help paying a huge bill to get a land bridge and to get that area redone and improved. So that is sort of what the gist is on whether or not the Browns are going to move. The ownership, Jimmy and Dee Haslam, want the state, the county, and the city to pitch in a little bit more and not have them pay for it themselves. And billionaires, well, they want to stay billionaires. And a good way to do that is to have other people pay for big, expensive projects like this. But what do you guys think? Should the Browns play downtown or move to the suburbs, right? We'll kind of leave that open-ended because there's not a short list of places the Browns would move to or places the Browns have looked into buying land. It's going to be in northeastern Ohio. But for me, ideally in a perfect world, I love the downtown setup, mostly because when you're watching a game and they do the flyover and the little B-roll getting ready for kickoff, there's nothing better than seeing the city skyline in the back, seeing the lake, just in front of the stadium. That's one of the best sights to see. So I'd love to have that look maintained. And I'd love to see downtown Cleveland and that area improved and just cleaned up a little bit because you got Greg Newsome and Perrion Winfrey getting robbed at gunpoint at 3:30 in the morning. Not ideal. But that's true for any big city. Now, as for some injury news to get to coming out of the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia, Amari Cooper has been sidelined for the first start of training camp with some of an undisclosed injury. The Browns aren't very concerned about this. Doesn't sound like it has anything to do with his core muscle surgery injury he sustained at the end of last season, but they're being, cautious and they're holding him out, and they should. I mean, come on. It's not even August yet. It's July still. Do not rush Amari Cooper back. Matthew Adams got nicked up. We'll go back to that injury report. Matthew Adams got nicked up in training camp practice today. He was covering Donovan Peoples-Jones while working in a 7-on-7 red zone drill, limped up and was walked off the field with a trainer. Not much more on that. And then Dawand Jones missed the first couple of days of training camp due to an illness. Just got the sniffles. I'm not quite sure. So he has slowly worked himself back, and he looks to be close to ready to go. And then we know, Marquise Goodwin is unfortunately dealing with blood clots, so he has been sidelined. And you've got other wide receivers like Michael Woods just out for the season already with an Achilles tear. So there is a bit of a shortage at wide receiver right now, but it's July. Kevin Stefanski and Barry aren't going to, rush or pursue anything drastic because of wide receivers, Cooper excluded, but some of the lower level guys being a bit nicked up early on. Now, let's talk about some other takeaways here, including ownership, Jimmy and Dee Haslam, because they talked to the media, and there were a lot of questions tossed their way, including some about just 2023 and whether or not everything is on the line for Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry. And Haslam, when he spoke to the media during the owners' meeting, addressed this type of conversation, and he kind of downplayed it, but he acknowledged, this is a big year, and expectations are very high for everyone in the Browns organization, but he definitely does not want to put anything black or white out there and say 10 wins or we're cleaning house. He's not going to go into that game. He's smarter than that, but he also knows that there's a lot riding on the season. Here's what Jimmy said. I think it's really dangerous to say now or never. The NFL is unbelievably competitive, and our division, just Cincinnati, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, us, most people think it's the toughest division. So do we feel the best about our rosters and our rosters we have going into this year? Do I think Andrew and Paul and Kevin have done a great job? We do. Are we excited about this year? Yes. To say it's now or never, I think it'd be grossly unfair, but we're excited about the year. Jimmy, I'll take this one for you, and I'll say it. It is. It's a boom or bust season for the Cleveland Browns because they have invested so much into this 2023. And if those expectations, and I think the expectations are playoffs and probably wins in the playoffs, are not met, then there's going to be some change. Now, I want to just look at some of the big contracts that Jimmy Haslam has written checks for. Because when he writes a $230 million check for Deshaun Watson, and Denzel Ward becomes the highest paid cornerback with over $100 million, and then Jack Conklin, for like shits and giggles, gets a 4-year, $60 million extension. Dalvin Tomlinson finding $57 million in free agency. Wyatt Teller, David Njoku, Joel Bitonio, Nick Chubb, all getting extensions because Andrew Berry is meeting with Jimmy Haslam. He's like, I know these are big contracts to give out, but I believe they are fundamental to the success of this team long term. Well, if Haslam is green-lighting all this money being spent, he wants some return on his investment. And that has to be in 2023, right? Because it's not just money given out. The Browns have also made a lot of moves, and they have moved on from a lot of draft picks, right? We're talking 3 first-rounders for Deshaun Watson, some picks for Amari Cooper, a second-round or day 2 pick swap to get Elijah Moore. Zadarius Smith netted 2 fifth-round picks. The screen's not even big enough to fit on guys like Dawand Jones. There have been a lot of assets moved on to put together the best possible roster, not for 2 to 3 years down the road, but for right now. This is a very tough division, no doubt about it. I mean, you could argue that there are 2 teams in the top 10 of the NFL right now in the AFC North, undoubted, in the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. The Browns are right there on the edge, at least league-wide perspective-wise or perception of being in that 10 to 15 range. The Pittsburgh Steelers never go below 500. So this is a very tough division in a very tough conference where even if the Bengals and the Ravens take their respective playoff spots via win in the division and the first wild card spot, the next 2 wild card spots are not going to be easily obtained. You look at the AFC East, you got Aaron Rodgers there. Tua and the Dolphins were amazing last year when Tua was healthy, and they still made the playoffs despite him being unhealthy at the end of the season. Bill Belichick and the Patriots are the worst team in the division. I mean, really. And then you got Josh Allen and the Bills. In the AFC South, it's really just the Jags, but Mike Vrabel's a really good coach for Tennessee. And then the AFC West, you have Kansas City, you have Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Sean Payton's now in Denver, and the Raiders suck. But it's going to be a very difficult AFC North and AFC as a conference, but there will be shakeup. If this team does not reach, and I'm sure Haslam has something in his head and he just doesn't want to say it, reach that expectation, I don't see a way Haslam brings back the whole gang after sitting down at the end of the year going, so we won 9 games. I signed a lot of those contracts. Big money going out the door. We moved on from a lot of draft picks because you told me that these players were worth those picks. And what do we have to show for it? A 9-8 season or an 8-9 season? Yeah, maybe there's someone else that could be doing a better job of spending my money. So for that reason, I'll answer the question for you, Jimmy. It's a make or break season for these guys in charge. No doubt about it in my mind. But let me know if you disagree. 2023, boom or bust. I think it is, without a doubt. This is all the chips in the middle of the table, right? You've given out a lot of money. You've moved on from a lot of assets. It all comes down to this year. Doesn't have to be Super Bowl or bust. I don't think that is the case here. But it is make the playoffs without a doubt. And I don't even want to entertain because I know someone's going to comment, and you know it too. Like, you know who you are right now. Do not be the person that comments, but what if, Matthew, the Browns win 11 games, but by virtue of wild tiebreakers, they don't make the playoffs? Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's just not. Because last year, a 9-win team made the playoffs last year in the Miami Dolphins in the AFC. So let's assume 11 wins get you in. Some other takeaways I've got from Sulphur Springs, White Sulphur Springs in West Virginia, wherever Greenbrier is. Greg Newsome on Elijah Moore from Zach Jackson at The Athletic. The NFL better watch out for him. He's one of the best I've gone against, and I'm not just saying that because he's on my team. I've just seen a lot of praise go towards Elijah Moore and Okoronkwo, a couple of players, but these are some players just to keep on their radar as we go into the preseason. As some guys that are not getting, the talk is here and the production is here. So you're going to see a lot of results come from Elijah Moore. I'm drinking the Elijah Moore Kool-Aid. I'm refilling it, and then I'm drinking it again. That's how in I am on number 8. To wrap up today's episode of the Cleveland Browns Report, pick a card time. We got Mr. Matthew McCullough behind the camera today. Big Tex, what card do you want to go with? The producers and me are tied 1-1. So it's high stakes indeed.
Let me go with the Queen of Clubs.
Queen of Clubs? Okay, we had a Jack of Spades yesterday, if I recall. So that would just be upstairs. I will go with the 7 of Hearts. One more cut. 8 of Spades. 8 of Spades. Okay, that will do it for us on today's show. I should have mentioned this earlier, but if you like today's video, that would go a long way, please. But also consider subscribing. Help us grow this channel. We can get more studio space as a result, and you guys can get more Browns content.